This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trend in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini Today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Judith Mancini Today is sponsored by Basic Brands, Inc., providing the highest quality specialty products in the natural food industry. Visit basicbrandsinc.com and enter JMT15 for your 15% discount on your very first order, including their best-selling Vitamin E ointment, which helps restore moisture and elasticity to your skin. Whoa, we are getting a lot of moisture in the air. That's all the snow that fell in the east, and now we're getting this cyclone of weather on the West Coast again. So it's probably going to rain about 5 inches in an inch an hour in some places. So you better be careful. Don't go out where you think it's flooded and think you can get across it in your car. That's very dangerous. More people die in their cars than anything when they're trying to escape a flood like that. So don't do it. And keep an eye on your warning systems. You know, almost in every city now, you can get alerts on your cell phone or on your landline or your television of what's happening in your area. So we are under flood and mudslides and wind advisories right here where we live. So if I disappear, tell somebody. No joking. This is really, really a dangerous situation. Well, you know, I want to share with all of you how to become healthy, wealthy, and wise. And today we're going to concentrate on health. So before we get started on the New Year's resolutions in reality in 2023, oh, by the way, Happy New Year to everyone. Before we move forward to that, I want to talk about some things that are in the in the news. Sorry about that. Some of the things that are in the news that you should be studying. I'm not sure why I'm losing my voice. Well, if any of you were watching the NFL game between with the Buffalo Bills, you'll notice all of the talk about what happened to Damar Hamlin, how he just dropped down on the field after a hit. And there have been many speculations, but finally the hospital itself is coming out with more, and they have announced today that he is recovering and that he doesn't have any neurological problems, it doesn't seem. So they're watching him very closely, and they still have him in an induced coma or sedated, however you want to phrase it. So we're watching that closely. But my question on all of this, because this is so much in the news about these young men in particular are dropping dead, and they've all been boosted, and they've all discovered blood clots hitting their heart. Now, this seems to be a little different. This seems to be from a really bad hit, and it wasn't that extreme of a tackle, but it apparently hit right into his heart and interrupted the rhythm and shut it down. Boy, and thank God for all of the great health and sideline people that got out there and did the CPR and everything else to save this young man. So we're grateful for that. But I'm concerned about the boosters. And it's my understanding, and you can quote me or not, that the NFL said all players had to be vaccinated and boosted. Now, I could be very wrong, so let me know if I am. But this is a big concern to me because I have a grandson who's that age, and I have younger grandchildren too, that are both boys. I don't know why it's affecting boys or men, males, more than females or girls. But it does seem to be doing this, and I really want to urge everybody to see if we can't get more investigation into this and see what we can do about it. Because I really think you need this information to decide if you're going to take the next booster. It seems to me they're coming out all the time with new boosters. The latest one came out, and Pfizer didn't even have to have it approved or investigated. It just came out at the same time that they raised their prices to everyone 400%. Boosting for profit is a horrible thing during a pandemic, so-called pandemic in the United States. There seem to be so many variants of this now. The booster doesn't even hit all of them to knock them down. And this is a horrifying statistic to me. And this comes from the Epoch Times. It says, in California, the boosted population made up 72% of the COVID cases among vaccinated people in June. In Vermont that month, the boosted population made up 90% of the COVID deaths among the vaccinated. Now we're talking about deaths. 72% in California and 90% in Vermont. What about the other states? I don't know. I haven't read the entire report, but you might want to go to the Epoch Times and see what you can find out, or just type in whatever your search engine is, deaths from the boosted population. I think it's something that's very important to find out. I am not having any more shots. I've only had the Johnson & Johnson. But I am still 2.5 years later experiencing, and they didn't just start now, they started about almost a year ago, these side effects. And I think I've shared with you what they are. And they were tingling in my thighs, and it was not a neurological problem. I've had a stomach upset where I'm not actually physically getting rid of things in my stomach, but stomach cramps and a dizziness that is unexplained, where you just get up from sitting down. You could be laying down, you could be getting up from bed, anything, and just a little dizziness that's annoying but also frightening. So these things are still happening, and we do need to go ahead and report them. I saw another report that said about 71% to 76% of nurses have not been informed how to report side effects. If you go into your doctor's office or you work in a hospital or something and somebody's telling you something, you're probably trying to figure out what's going on with them and if they have some sort of illness. This is not the nurse's fault. This should be going out to nurses. What side effects are being experienced from these vaccines and the boosters? I don't know. I'm sure all hospitals give daily updates to the nurses, but it would be very helpful to have a place for you personally, you out there listening, if you're having strange side effects, you don't want to go back to your doctor, which I think you should be checked out to make sure it is not from an illness other than these vaccines or boosters or COVID itself. You should be checked out. A lot of people are getting colds this season, and some are getting the respiratory things, but we need to build up our immune systems. And remember that wearing a mask doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get COVID. It's not cutting out the transfer of a disease to you, or you getting one for yourself or giving one to another person. Excuse me. So here is the way to report these. I'm sure if you go onto this, if you go onto the site, you can report it. I'm not sure how you get it. You could call the CDC on your phone if you're not on the internet. So I'm sure you could get a number for the CDC on your phone. But here is the information for you to look up. It's on our Cryon right now. Just let me read it to you in case you're not watching us. It's vaers.hhs.gov, /report event, REPORTEVENT. We're going to leave that up for a little bit so you can run and get a pencil or whatever you want to do. But I think that's a good place to start and report it. And you can also look up there and see what side effects are happening to other people. Well, I think that's enough about COVID right now. I have some other news that I think I'll leave until next week about COVID and China and the Chinese Communist Party. I want to do a little more research on it. It sounds very probable to me, and I want you all to think about it too. So we'll do that next week. But right now, I want to talk about another thing that has come out from the government, and that is the food pyramid. The food pyramid, you know, down in the 80s, I think was the last time they revised it. And they have come out with a new one, not exactly a pyramid, but something akin to a pyramid. And what I want to tell you is you can now feed your kids Lucky Charms. They're better than an egg fried in butter or eaten with a piece of whole wheat toast with butter on it. Are you kidding me? This is craziness. And I just don't understand who is writing this. But when you look at the current people in these positions of health and welfare and human resources and the different cabinet members that are in charge of these different things, maybe you'll understand. Okay, so at the very top of the things that you should be eating: watermelon, kale, frosted mini wheats, unsweetened almond milk, non-fat frozen, chocolate-covered almonds, orange juice with calcium, honey nut Cheerios, a date. You know, the fruit, the date. Okay, at the very bottom, and the things they don't want you to eat are non-fat mozzarella cheese, ice cream cone with nuts, whole egg fried in butter, cheddar cheese, ground beef. Look this up. This is from True Science, the National Institute of Health funded Food Compass. Says frosted mini wheats and honey nut Cheerios are healthier than poached eggs and beef. Would you stop and think about that? Our one big problem in this country is we are such a wealthy country, and don't get me wrong, I know some of you are struggling, but the government is also helping those that are struggling. And people that are on food stamps are going out and buying candy, frosted cereals loaded with sugar. At least they can't buy cigarettes and liquor. Now, we can talk about that too, but that's not the point of this right now. Yes, you should be free to eat what you want, but you're not making money. We're helping you out here. And we have a problem in this country with obesity. And one of the number one things in resolutions, which we'll get to in a few minutes, is wanting to lose weight or giving up sugar. Admirable. But give me a break. If the government is coming out and telling you that you could eat watermelon, which is basically water, that's so much better than eating a boiled or poached egg. This crazy thing is just loaded with sugar on this new whatever this is going to be referred to as a food pyramid, whatever. So why don't you look up what the government has to say about that and do your own food pyramid? Look at some healthy sites and decide what really is healthy for you. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Now, going on to a little more news. This is for California people, and this will be spreading to other states. And for all I know, it already has. You need to know these things. This is part of being wise and healthy, wealthy, and wise. You not only want to learn about these things for yourself, but if you're with your girlfriends or your men friends in a group, a dinner party, or even one-on-one with somebody, don't sit there and talk about silly things all day. It's fun to talk about fashion and makeup and the latest things going on in Hollywood, but it's nice to discuss, oh, God forbid that word, politics. It's nice to know what's going on in your state. And I looked up some of the different bills that Governor Newsom is behind and trying to get passed, and some of them have already been passed. One of the most frightening things I saw was that a doctor, now listen closely, a doctor who doesn't adhere to the government idea of what COVID is all about, and he suggests that you take certain supplements, vitamin D, simple things like that, zinc as a mineral. If these doctors promote and tell their patients to take these other ideas of what helps treating COVID or preventing COVID, they can lose their license. They will not only be reprimanded, but they can lose their license to practice. If you are into alternative methods or health, where integrative health, where you use both practices, the regular AMA enforced medical science, or people like me and most of my friends and most of the doctors that I know do tell you that supplements are okay. The government only says certain ones are. So if you add something to it, such as lysine, which is now being tested and approved by many people for the treatment and prevention of COVID, you can lose your license. That's not only hurting your patients, it's hurting you. It's getting rid of your livelihood. Now, the FDA is always going after us, and right now they have gone after alternative health or complementary health. There's so many different names out there now, but this means other ways to treat and prevent illness. They're going after herbs now. Again, way back when I owned my magazine and my publishing company in the natural health industry, they went after all supplements. Like, you couldn't get vitamin C over 1,000 milligrams. You would have to get a prescription for it. Vitamin C, give me a break. We know for a fact that if you take massive doses of vitamin C, you can get rid of Epstein-Barr. And that some people say that that is wrong. The government is saying that because they want to get some of the big pharmacy companies to be able to make more money off of you. This is wrong. This is so wrong. So back in the day, in the 90s, we were able to pass DSHEA, Dietary Supplement Act, to get rid of this oversight of vitamin C and some of the things, but they are going after herbs now. So ashwagandha, some of these things that help with stress, it's just a very bad situation. So Google that, DuckDuckGo it, whatever that site is. Just do some of your own research. You know, a lot of oils are coming out now to help you. Those will be gone too if this is allowed to happen. So those are some of the things happening in California now. Let's jump over to our resolutions. And I want to tell you that there is a difference between resolutions and reality after January 1st. So I'm sure you have already canceled that 5-mile walk a day or the 5-mile run a day because it is now the 5th of January. And I bet because of the snow and the rain, you haven't been able to do it. And that's okay. You can start when all of this bad weather is gone. But what I want to say is maybe you can't fulfill that resolution because you're never going to get to the 5 miles. So why don't you change it to something that is reachable in reality? Why don't you start out slowly walking around your neighborhood, walking in the park, and do something. Just try to take your steps, how many steps you can do every day. There's all sorts of wonderful trackers that you can wear on your wrist as a watch. There's even one that you can take and wear on your fingers now. There's all sorts of ways to do it. You can track it on your phone, smartphones, and most of you have smartphones. But why don't you start out slowly what you know you can achieve? Even if you've been running 2 miles and you haven't done it for the last 6 months and you want to get back on it, and that's one of your resolutions, start out slowly and be sure you're healthy. Don't just jump in there. Another one is eating healthy. Well, did you do it on January 1st, or did you start watching those football games and for all your sneaky snacks, you were passing around the fattening dips, the lots of barbecues and things, but maybe you were eating too many of the delicious, who's going to say they're not, delicious things like the potato salad or the pasta salad. Or go easy. Why don't you try doing something like this? If you're trying to get rid of sugar and you're trying to lose weight, maybe you could cut out your bedtime snack or your midnight snack. I think you'd sleep better if you're not training yourself to wake up in the middle of the night and go eat that ice cream by the spoonful and hope your husband or wife doesn't catch you. Try the little things. Don't go to the donut store and order coffee and a glazed donut. Just cut that out. I'm not one to support the coffee industry in some of these places, but I occasionally go. And my downfall at Starbucks, even though I don't approve of a lot of things they do, there's one very close to us. And on a very hot day, I will go and I will get a Frappuccino and I'll get a big one. Well, we've all been fooled because the biggest one is a venti and the medium one is the exact same size, but in a different shaped cup, but you pay more for it. And the last time I did it, I thought I was charged $6 for it, which is atrocious, but I didn't realize that until I was at the cashier ready to pay. Well, I wasn't going to cancel my order then. But I must have misunderstood her, because when it came through on my credit card, it was $8. For goodness sakes. Inflation and recession, I am not going to support the people who own stock or whatever. I don't even know if it's publicly traded, but I'm not going to support these people with an $8 cup of coffee that's mostly ice. So I am never going in a Starbucks again. And as I said, I probably went once or twice a year, but I'm never going in another one. So you could cut that out. It cuts sugar out, and it cuts your bills down a little bit. So that is what I have to say about eating healthy right now. Start with a little bit of reforming your idea of a healthy diet, and don't go crazy. What I want to say about the food pyramid and eating healthy on your resolutions is there are a lot of doctors out there now who are coming up with supplements, and that is their prerogative and their freedom to do so. And I commend them for thinking of companies to expand or enhance their practices. But some of them are using celebrity endorsements, and I'm not so sure that's a great idea. Some of them are taking nothing but fruits and vegetables and putting them in capsules after they dehydrate them. And it sounds like a good idea. I tested it myself. I didn't find that I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed any more than I usually am with my high energy, but that could be just me. But what I want to say is I'm against these doctors in all fields. Some are cardiologists, some are nutritionists and chiropractors, some are just general practice doctors, all sorts of doctors. And they have a lot of letters behind their names, and I commend them on their high education and what they have studied. But most doctors in their residencies and internship and in school never receive a class on nutrition. So now they are saying they're studying all this, and you shouldn't eat certain vegetables and certain fruits. Now, after for the last few years telling us that we should eat tomatoes and avocados, oranges, we're no longer supposed to eat those. We can if we take the skins or the seeds out. Well, a lot of people do that already. But there's the Mediterranean diet that people have been on for centuries. And it's fresh fish, it's beef, very little, it's lamb, very little, but it's full of fruits and vegetables. Tomatoes are very healthy. And you might want to squeeze your tomatoes so you don't get too many tomato seeds in your spaghetti sauce. But let me tell you, eating tomatoes is good for you. And you know, I'm not certified in nutrition, but I'm old and I'm pretty darn healthy. Why would you cut things out that have been proven to be good for you? Because the doctors or the different food industries have lobbied in Washington, D.C. to get their food promoted, like the dairy industry did. They went after the dairy industry and said you shouldn't drink any milk. And then the dairy industry had to go and lobby and say the milk is good for you. Milk is good for you unless you're lactose intolerant. And there are people who are genuinely lactose intolerant. So you should listen to yourself and listen to your body and get expert care and information. Now, this is like Pfizer going and lobbying the people in Washington, D.C., because they get things passed like a 400% increase on their vaccinations. The food industry is huge on this, the sugar industry that puts the sugar in all the different products that you like to eat, the donuts and the sugar you want to put in your coffee. They go there all the time, and I would say they did a great job of lobbying this time, telling you that Lucky Charms are better than a poached egg. If you poach an egg, you poach it in water if you're smart, not in butter. And they got this done and stuck on the food pyramid. Now, remember last week, you can go back and hear and watch our show. I told you about butter, so I'm not against butter. Okay, the next thing that people say on their resolutions is learn a new skill or a new hobby. Well, if you're retired and you don't have anything to do, you could learn a new skill. Me, I'm semi-retired, as you can see. And I have on my list of goals and resolutions to learn to speak more fluently in the Spanish language. I can read very well in Spanish, and I can get along okay in a conversation, but it's difficult when people speak rapidly to me. And my daughter is married to an Argentine, and so his mother has been here since COVID started. She's getting ready to go back home, but she doesn't want to learn English. But I am not fluent enough in Spanish to talk to her constantly and be understood or understand her. So both of my little 8-year-old and 4-year-old grandsons speak Spanish and English, and they're both fluent in it. So I'm falling behind. Excuse me. So that is one thing that I want to do. But I also wanted to learn American Sign Language, and I don't feel like I can keep that on my list because I'm not fluent in it at all. I don't know anything. I only know a couple signs, and I would like to learn that. But I do know that I can't devote a lot of time to it right now in my life. So I've moved it down my list a little bit, even though I shouldn't. So learn a new skill or hobby, and maybe you want to fill your time with going to one of the nursing homes by you. Someplace like that close to us is the home for the movies, the entertainment industry. And I know that they would love to see you if you have time on your hands. And they're wonderful people over there. So you could go to any kind of nursing home and help them. And if it's allowed, you might want to take your children with them if you have children at home, because they love to see children. It brings smiles to their faces. So there's all kinds of new things. When we're talking about more exercise and doing things like that, pickleball is all the rage out here in California. And I think it's a rage all over the country when the weather is good or you can play inside. So I don't know how to play pickleball, but I do know how to play tennis. So I don't think it would be that hard for me to learn. And it seems that all these different teams and people being able to play, just drop in and play, is all the rage now. So that's one thing you can pick up and do. Now this one, it gets me, this is a list of the 8 biggest and most common resolutions, and some of them may be on your list or may not be on your list. So the next one is live life to the fullest. What the heck does that mean? Don't you think you should define it? I think it means spending more time with friends and family, and that is one of the top 8 things that people say. So I think living your life your fullest is being with family and friends, celebrating the little things that happen in life, not just the big things like a baby and a baby shower, but how about going and visiting that mother and the baby? How about checking up on them if you live across the country? We have all sorts of things. Skype has fallen a little bit in popularity because we now have, if you have an iPhone, something like FaceTime, where you can call up and see the people in person. We have Zoom. You can join Zoom for free for so many hours or calls, and you can get everybody on there. Just tell your aging parents or your girlfriend that doesn't like tech, like me, how to do it so that you can see people. And that to me is living life to the fullest. There's other things on here that are also living your life to the fullest. And that is travel more. That's what everybody says. But there's a recession. They're probably going to announce it, but they're kind of pulling the wool over your eyes by not telling you we're in a recession now. But we are definitely experiencing very high inflation. And just because a couple things went down in price doesn't mean that paying $19 for a dozen eggs isn't inflation. Eggs used to be one of the things you could feed your family for fairly inexpensively with lots of protein. So we are in an inflation, and we need for you to really realize that and cut back your budget, which means you're probably not going to go on a trip. Although this past Christmas holiday, you saw what happened. Everybody wanted to go be with family or friends, and I can't say that I blame them. I'm fortunate that everybody is mostly in California for family. But I will tell you, many of my friends have moved out of this crazy state. And I'm a native, and it breaks my heart. So the traveling more, you know how you can solve this? I bet you half the people in California have never explored California. We are the biggest state, one of the biggest states, and easy to travel to because things are pretty close for us. We are long and narrow. We're not spread out wide with lots of miles in between like Texas, but we're not as small as Rhode Island or someplace like that where it's easier, not so much in the wintertime with the snow piling up. But there are wonderful things to do. So if you're in California, how about going and visiting all the missions in California? They go from San Diego down in that area on the border all the way up into Northern California. So there are places to go and enjoy where you don't have to travel very far. And yes, gasoline prices are still high, but if you can't get on an airplane or a train, that's what you should be doing. Explore your own state or even explore your own city. What about taking your children to all the wonderful museums, the Natural Museum, the Science Museum? They have a lot of museums around the country just for children now. Excuse me, in Los Angeles, we have the dinosaurs, which what little kid does not want to go see the dinosaurs? Even I like to go see the dinosaurs. There's Alvera Street in Los Angeles. There is the Hong Kong Chinese area. We have a Vietnam area. We have all different areas in Los Angeles. We're a very diverse city. It's a wonderful thing to do. And as you travel up north, you can go along the coast road and see the beautiful ocean and stop in some of these seaside towns. We have Monterey that has a fabulous aquarium. So that's traveling more too. And there's many places that you can do that. If you haven't been to Washington, D.C. and you live in the West, if you can get there by plane or train and have the money to do so, get over there and show your kids where our seat of government is. part of it, the places in Boston and Philadelphia where our country started, there are wonderful things to do in our country, and we're very proud of them. And that's what you should be looking for when you want to travel more. I don't know about this one. High on the list of 8 things that people really want to do is quit smoking. Well, I'm going to tell you, smoking is an addiction, just like drugs or alcohol. And it's harder than heroin to stop. So it is not healthy for you. But I want to insert this here. As much as many of us, dislike smoking for obvious reasons, smoking is not forbidden in many countries. Mexico is one of them. Italy is one. Spain is one. There are many countries where people smoke. And because they eat healthy and exercise just by walking around their cities, which we can't really do in the United States, except in very large cities like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. You can't walk around Los Angeles. There's nowhere to walk to. It's difficult even to go from the train station to Alvera Street, which is right next to it. So pick your things to give up. Don't do drugs, don't do alcohol to excess. And I consider drugs, even things like your doctor prescribing antidepressants, if you don't need them, you need to be assessed before you start taking these things. You need to be assessed if you need any kind of medication, high blood pressure, things for arthritis, things for immune diseases. I think we're overprescribed in this country. And before you look at giving up things, I think the people who smoke and have been smoking their entire life, if they are not sick with cancer, they have a healthy heart, they have healthy lungs. I think that probably if they're older, they might have a heart attack if they give up smoking now. So cut it down, make it reasonable, and don't beat yourself up if you can't give it all up. But work on it because we want healthy habits. And don't smoke around those you love, or anybody else for that matter, because there is such a thing as secondhand smoke. So that's what I think about smoking. And I'm sure you have other things on your list that you want to do. I'd love to know what they are. You can chat with everyone in the studio. Don't ever forget that. You can send me questions or ask me anything, and I'll see if I can answer them for you. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye because there's something I want you to tune into because it's history in the making, and that is electing the Speaker of the House. Now, pretty much everybody knows I'm a conservative. That's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about is anybody can be Speaker of the House, which is something I learned this time. I did not know that somebody who is not in the House of Representatives could be elected Speaker of the House. So they have now had, and maybe because I haven't been watching it, they may have now had their 7th vote. I don't know. They were supposed to start at 12 o'clock, which here on the West Coast is already going on. So it's an interesting thing. They have to be nominated from the floor, and listening to these people speak, some of them seem to just hate the person running and are voting on personalities, and others have legitimate reasons why they want somebody for speaker. I've been interested in knowing who they are putting up for election for each party. And it shows me one thing. Both parties are totally screwed up And we're in big trouble in this country. If we can't even elect a Speaker of the House and everybody get along and figure out the committees so that we have, I hate to use this quote, but fair and balanced, and really doing what the people of the United States want, then we are in big trouble. So that's my last wise comment of the day. I want you to think about that. I want you all to be healthy, wealthy, and wise in 2023. And before I sign off, I want to say happy birthday to my beautiful daughter, Megan. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today.